Alrighty, welcome back everyone to Galactic Reviews. It seems for the time being we've gotten back on a somewhat regular schedule, which is very nice and refreshing. This week we are talking about at this point in time, it's like a week old Imaginary, the newest Blumhouse horror classic studio, Imaginary. I was really intrigued by the trailer, and I knew it was either going to be bad and just not enjoyable, just a subpar horror movie, surprisingly good, or somewhere in the middle where it's just going to be some good parts and some parts that are bad and funny. Easy guess to which one of the three it is. This movie just it did break some of the basic plot that I thought it was going to follow, but very little. We got the basic trope of uh, everything seeming fine, kid with an imaginary friend, and uh-oh, thing's a monster. You get all this in the trailer. You get a lore dump later on from some old lady that's was there at the first meeting or whatever. Um, and then things get really wild, and they got to save this little girl. Um, Things I liked about it, the horror elements were pretty decent. Just the ambiance, some of the things they did with the makeup and the clone characters that you see later is a weird way to put it. The the monster form of the imaginary friend looked pretty decent, if despite it being pretty fake in certain shots. Just kind of the suspense and the atmosphere that they were able to create, that was pretty good. And some of the jump scares were pretty good. They got me. Just the ambiance, the scary ambiance, I thought they nailed majority of the time. The parts that I didn't like was pretty much the rest of the movie. Um, the acting was awful, with the exception of the little girl, which is the crazy part. Normally she's the one that's the worst, but the little girl did the best. The dialogue was really poorly written, um, rushed, choppy, just not great. Even the dialogue that could have been acted well, the actors didn't do a great job with. Um, there's this one scene where a guy was on drugs and it was obvious he'd never had drugs or seen anyone on drugs ever. Just bad all around. If it weren't for the horror scenes, it would have gotten like a two or a three. With the horror scenes, it is a generous five of enjoyment, especially if you could take the bad parts and take it as just laughing at it. A five. If it's so bad that it just hurts to watch, a four. But most of the time, I was just like, "This is ridiculous. It's funny." So I'd give it a solid, a decent, generous five.
All right, I'll go next. I mean, I think you summed this movie up pretty well, to be perfectly honest. The only thing that I will disagree with was the horror parts, they were good, but the fact of it's only like maybe 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes of that, and it's a hour and 45 minute movie. It it's like it's too long. The first jump scare you get is like 45 minutes into the movie. So that's just a big disappointment for me. Yeah, it was enjoyable to watch because it was so disappointing. Um, but because of that, yeah, I'm gonna have to give this a 3 out of 10. Probably one of their most disappointing movies so far. So, I mean, can't win them all, but goodness.
Unlike the two of you, this movie is not in my wheelhouse of movies I like to watch or care to watch at all in my free
I
time.
mean, it's
So,
it's not really in mine either. I watch them every once in a while, especially the bad ones. I really like watching the bad ones.
well, I don't care to watch any of them. So that's
I
me.
mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Um,
I like horror.
do I think occasionally one could pique my interest that's really good? Sure. This one wasn't that. Um, you guys have basically already summed it up pretty well. The acting was never not really that good. The dialogue wasn't that great. there were times where I was trying to find the discrepancies in the plot in certain instances, but I think for that part it was mostly thought through, except for except for it being that if this was the case and it was such a big problem, why is this not being investigated more and only being a big thing now? So that's kind of the big thing. But if you ignore that, like it being like almost to the government level of being a problem, okay, the plot's not that horrible.
Especially when you got like kids cutting off fingers and I'm sure stabbing themselves in the
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah,
And you're like,
normal
nah, the
things in
kid's
Hollywood.
fine.
So I just yeah. This isn't in my wheelhouse, so it was I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I didn't care for a whole lot. So this has been kind of a meh movie. So I wasn't kind of as anticipating anything as much as you guys were. So I'm going to give it like a 5 just because I don't care. But I don't care that much about these types of films. So I didn't have expectations, but wasn't like going into this thing looking to see whether or not it was gonna be good or not. So yeah, I'm probably not a good judge for this movie. To be in all
Um,
honesty.
however, I will say that whether it was intentional or not, the lack of quality for the movie aided in the end plot twist because there was a point where it seemed just like super anticlimactic and they were wrapping up really fast.
Yeah.
And I didn't think twice about it. I was like, oh, they're
Well,
just continuing to have this be poorly written.
it
It's
would have
just
gone
over.
down a lot further if the plot ended like that. Because I was like,
I
that
know.
makes no sense at all in any of this. Now, granted, it still doesn't make sense how the kids got back through the door that closed, but it it made a lot less sense for why she didn't go through the door in the first place when all she had to do was just walk away. It made no sense. A lot of
Yeah.
it didn't.
Let's be honest, the biggest thing that didn't make any sense was that crazy old woman.
Yeah,
No,
well, the
that
thing that's
didn't.
stupid is the older sister didn't get that because there was a big clue as to her being crazy. Besides the earlier moments, was when she called the imaginary friend Chauncey or whatever. Um, but she had never heard of the. She would never have heard the name Chauncey. It would have only been CB that she would have heard, and not Chauncey. So
Well, she spoke of it later. She's been like in contact with
I
the
know,
spirit or
but that
whatever.
should have been a red flag to the older sister. As soon as she said
I
that,
mean, yeah, but
that should
let's
have
be
been a red
honest, the older
flag.
sister learned about all of this in like
But
5
Yeah,
then
but we
minutes.
again,
know the older sister is not smart.
no, she's
Well,
essentially just there to.
you know, smart enough to not do drugs.
Which is shocking enough as it is.
I was like, as soon as they brought like he pulled up the bag, I'm like, all right, they're gonna get
Yeah.
like blasted. The kid's gonna be in the bedroom.
Smart
Yeah,
enough
if
not to
you
know to
like
take
horror movies,
Adderall
yeah, if
because
it
it was
wasn't even Adderall,
allergy
it was allergy
medicine.
medicine.
It was
He was taking
allergy
Claritin.
medicine.
Yeah.
Taking some
And
Claritin, baby.
if if you enjoy poorly made horror movies as a laugh
This is
that
definitely one.
can have decent horror elements, I guess this is fine. Um, but no, it's not a good movie in the slightest.
The CGI
The
was
some of the
not that
best
good
parts were
either.
definitely no.
CGI wasn't
Some
that
of the
great
best
either.
parts were definitely I think my favorite scene was during like the therapy and she was talking to Chauncey and then turned around and the voice kept going.
Yeah, that was
That was
good.
probably
Yeah.
my favorite, best done part in the movie.
The only good part.
Yeah. I
And then
did
the
actually
moment
enjoy
where we
that.
learned that the bear was in itself like imaginary. But other than that,
Like
that probably wrapped it up.
it had good parts. It had a good idea. It's just everything about this was just
Poorly executed.
like the execution of it. Hmm.
Also, I found this out by the way. These little things, this is a Mac feature, not a Zoom feature. You could do it over FaceTime.
learn something new.
Yeah, you do. What it was, I don't know, but we learned something today.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. This is
I'll
not
be
in my
never
wheelhouse.
watching
This is
you
never going to
guys.
be in my wheelhouse, and I'm better off for it. So, because it seems like this is more the norm with horror films.
Yeah, it's
But
increasingly more uncommon that a good horror film comes out because they've been made. There's so many out there, and in order to be
Yeah.
good, it has to be original because otherwise, it's just playing off of something that already exists.
Yep.
yeah, well, I
Yep.
think that, and on top of that, they're relatively cheaper to make, which is why that there's so many of them.
I
If
mean,
I'm not
let's be
mistaken.
honest. The first Saw movie was a budget movie,
Yeah.
and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It's like it was. Look, I'm being perfectly honest, Andrew. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like the greatest movie out there.
The second one is
I
phenomenal.
haven't seen the second or third one. I hear they're phenomenal,
I haven't
but
either. So,
the first one, I mean, the saving grace of that movie was it had what's his name?
Carrie Ellis.
Yes, my hero.
oh, yeah, he was the doctor. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that was the saving grace of that movie. Anyone have anything else?
Nope.
No, this movie was
All
mid,
right.
just sucky. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, that's disappointing. But anything, join us next week as we watch the new Godzilla vs. Kong, the new Empire.
Anyways, until next time. And remember, if you don't like Dune or the series and think they're chick movies, you're wrong.
Why didn't you go read a book, pussy?